We're back. This is X-Ray in the Morning. I'm Jefferson Smith. Ken Helm is House District 34 State Representative. Joins us today to talk policy, give us an idea of what he plans for the next term as part of our series of trying to get as many office holders and candidates in before the elections who understand who's governing you and as a window to the issues that face us all. Ken Helm, you're unopposed in District 34. Where is that geographically?
District 34 is in the north part of Beaverton. On the west side is bounded by 185th Street. On the north, Highway 26. To the south, TV Highway, and then over on the east side, the Cedar Hills and West Haven neighborhoods.
So is that Chris Harker's old seat?
It is.
And that maybe Suzanne Bonamici's old seat?
Yes, we've got quite a lineup. Suzanne Bonamici, Chris Harker. Brad Avakian lives in my district, and our former governor used to live in the district too. So we got a lot of heavy hitters.
John Kitzhaber lives in the district.
Yes.
Does he now live in the Pearl?
I don't know.
You don't go over
I know
his
where
house?
his old house is.
Do you go over there and just knock on and see what's going on?
Not
Ask
so
for
much.
advice?
Not so much.
All right. So what are you most proud of that you've gotten done since you've been in the legislature?
The thing that I'm most proud of, and I talk about a lot, is a topic that goes a little bit away from urban areas, and that is I teamed up with a very unlikely partner in 2016 to get some legislation passed that goes after the poaching epidemic in our state.
Do we poach here?
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
What are the greatest victims of the poaching? What do we poach most? I mean, I know there's a lot of illegal hunting. And I guess I think of poaching as something that happens in another country. Obviously, it happens here. What are the things we poach most?
Deer and elk.
Wow,
Okay.
Deer
no
and
idea.
elk. Yes, and it's really egregious. I mean,
When is something poach? What's the difference between poaching and just hunting beyond or without or a license or without or out of season? Is it the exact same thing?
It's exactly the same thing,
Okay.
but what we're
It
seeing
just sounds
now,
worse when we call it poaching.
it does.
Because I
and-
think about that dude who owns Jimmy John's and kills rhinoceri. It just bums me out, man.
Yes, it's. I know it strikes some of us as a different way to spend your time, but the real egregious examples are when animals are shot and just left. They're not used in any way. They're just wasted. And so, interestingly, and you may remember this fellow, Representative Wayne Krieger,
Sure.
from Curry County, and I had a similar interest in this, and we were able to work together to increase the stringency of the regulations. The impacts of going to court, and the fines. The fines went up substantially. So we're really after these people because they take wildlife that belong to all of us.
Representing Beaverton and a little bit of Portland, yeah, or is it all Washington? Are you all Washington County?
I think I got maybe 6 houses in the city of Portland.
That's
so
what I
I'm
thought.
an honorary member of the Portland
I
delegation.
think there's a tiny bit, as I remember, because when there's a replacement, right? When there's a midterm replacement and the precinct people have to choose, it seems to me that Multnomah County Democrats have to have a person say something during that process. It's pretty much all Washington County, but the Multnomah County folks have to say just something or other. When was your first election?
2014.
Yeah.
2014.
And who'd you run against?
I ran against, I can't even remember, in the general election, I can't remember the young man's name. Nice kid.
Wow. That is just shade. I'm sure he mattered. Yeah. I'm sure he had things going for him.
That was
He's in the rear view.
Mariah-Carey-esque shade.
He's in the rear view. I'm not
Don't
worried
know
about him
him.
now.
Don't know him.
Eyes ahead. This is the kind of issue, right? Who's going to come out against poaching, right? Or excuse me, who's going to come out in favor of poaching against your bill? There is a tug when one is representing Beaverton to champion issues that are valuable things to work on, might not be controversial because who you're appealing to are folks in office parks and who likewise wear sort of sensible sweaters and slacks. And what's the boldest thing? I too have my fair share of sensible sweaters and slacks, to be sure. What's the boldest thing that you're working on or that you've worked on?
I suppose the one of the bolder things that I would like to work on in the upcoming session is a suite of energy efficiency type measures. And the reason it's bold is it's tough to do. Everybody says, yes, we'd like to do that, but
once you try to do something, they say, well, no, not that.
Yeah, no, not that.
Well, it's not that sexy energy efficiency.
Yeah.
It's not?
It's
What's
not.
sexy then, Courtenay? If saving the
anything
planet.
involving sex is super sexy.
Okay.
No.
Just all of that. Just regulate women's bodies and men's bodies and just do that. Maybe some on porn. Just
Those things
do
that people get sort of passionate about.
Right.
You know?
So
I'm
climate
just saying,
change.
I'm interested in it.
cares,
I'm
really?
interested in energy
The
efficiency.
future of our economy.
I love polar bears, but I'm
Not
just
freezing
saying.
in the winter.
Exactly. It's somewhat difficult to get people really on board with an
I don't
energy
know.
efficiency policy.
That's what we're here
in
for.
my experience.
This riveting dialogue, we're going to get people all fired up about it. Ken, get people fired up about your energy efficiency suite. By the way, a suite of anything is by nature sexy. If it's a suite.
And more than three.
And
Is that what a
this
suite is?
place.
It's more than three
It's
things?
more than three things, and I can't think of them all right now, but I have them.
But yeah, so tell us about it, but kind of do it as if you're kind of like you're in advertising, like you're Don Draper.
So
You need
we
a drink?
we have a
Not
suite.
allowed to- you go do that. I'm going to cut you off. I like your Draper. Go on.
So we want to hit commercial buildings that are sort of grade B buildings and help them increase the efficiency of those buildings by changing their HVAC systems out and stuff like that. We want to improve the residential energy efficiency codes, and we want to give some incentives to folks to continue to do energy efficiency stuff around their homes.
What about energy efficiency scores on homes at time of purchase?
I think we already have that, so I don't know
Sweet.
how. Yeah, so done.
That's
Ding,
already in the
ding.
suite?
What
Yeah.
sort of incentives?
How big are they printed? Her question first.
Some of the same incentives that we had before that I think are still needed are stuff like the residential energy tax credit, for example. I know the governor has talked about letting that phase out. There's still a little bit of utility in that, and
Yeah.
people want solar panels on top of their homes. They feel like it's an Oregonian thing to do. They like to be in charge of their own energy production. And we're not quite to the place with solar yet that it seems to me that we go free market completely.
I think that, I have some friends who have gone solar in the past, and it ended up that it was sold to them that they would get these tax credits and that they would end up saving money, but in actuality ended up being quite a bit more expensive.
Do you know why, though?
No.
It's because of fracking.
Oh, really?
It really is because of fracking. The reason you would save is because energy costs are high. If energy costs are high and you are energy efficient, you save lots of money.
Yeah.
If energy costs are cheap, you don't save a lot of money because energy is cheap. The reason energy is cheap because of fracking. How come? Because not only does that make fracking energy cheap, but it also drives down the competition for other
Right.
or steps up the competition, and therefore drives down the price for
Yep.
foreign oil and all kinds of fossil fuel energy. That's why energy efficiency isn't as cost effective right now, and is one of the reasons why we're not combating things like doing the stuff we know we need to do. Ken Helm, agree with me.
I agree with you completely.
Boom.
And I knew that the conversation was going to get around to fracking sooner or later.
Well,
So- and
I'm right? I mean, that's
absolutely
what's going
right.
on.
And I've got a bill that's coming. I brought in 2015. I'm going to bring it again in 2017 to put a 10-year moratorium on fracking in the state in preparation for a ban.
Wait a minute. Do we do fracking here?
We do not. There are areas that are susceptible to
Frackable?
hydraulic fracking. Yep.
And
There
do you
are-
want to nip it in the
Highly
bud?
frackable areas.
You want to get to those frackable areas before they are fracked
Yeah, exactly.
and pass your
Yeah,
fracking bill.
Absolutely.
And it's a little bit like the offshore drilling. We don't have a lot of offshore drilling, but we nip it in the bud. So you put on a 10-year moratorium.
Yeah.
Why 10-year and not forever? Do you want fracking in 11 years, or do you just think it's easier to pass at 10 years?
I think it's easier to pass. I don't know that all of the state is ready to give up on that. I think we're seeing across the country, though, that those areas that hydraulic fracking took over in like North Dakota and eastern Montana, the social impacts of having a boom and bust economy built around petroleum products has really been detrimental to them.
And no one loves the little earthquakes. Those aren't fun for anybody.
Extraction economies have their benefits, but have enormous costs, right? Because once you're done with the extraction, what do? Move out and create a ghost town.
Exactly.
But here's a counter. Here's a counter to your 10-year plan, sir. If we get really excited about fracking, right? Let's say that we decide, no, it turns out it's a way better thing than we thought it was. They could repeal your law, right? You don't have to have a 10-year sunset. You can say, hey, if circumstances change, if there is no other way to get energy, if we've moved nowhere further on renewables, if we've nowhere further on efficiency, if we're just in dire straits, everybody's going to know that, and we'll just repeal this law and we'll start fracking. Why put in a sunset rather than leave it to a future legislature to change the law?
As your reasoning at the beginning was correct. I just think that
You just need to
that
get the votes.
We just need to be able to get this baby step done, and then we'll move on from there.
So who are your least favorite fellow legislators?
Well, Tina Kotek. Who are
the legislators? Who are the legislators you're trying to buy off with your 10-year limit? Who are the people who say, no, I've got my 11-year flat fracking plan. You better put a sunset on this bad boy. Who have you heard that from? That's a different question than who your least favorite. Those could be who your most favorite are, who are so thoughtful about the future of the state.
Well, I'm not prepared to name names, but I will say this: the folks that appear to be in favor of fracking don't have frackable areas in their districts.
Where are the frackable areas?
The frackable areas happen to be partially in the Willamette Valley and then down south and
Like
curving
what
out to-
towns roughly, or near what towns?
Oh,
Like Silverton?
Drain.
Drain.
That's
ironic. This is pretty well named, right?
Yeah, it must have been a part of the Missoula flood depositions, because the Willamette Valley, it's some of the best farmland in the world, and as you move south, you get into areas that at least our folks in the geology department identify as being potentially holding frackable resources.
What do you see as it feels to me like as these explosions happen, as people's water becomes filled with oil in certain areas, like it feels like as these things happen, then there would be more people who are sort of anti-fracking. Do you feel like there's any sort of tide turning, or are the people who have been for fracking continue to just be behind it regardless of what happens?
To be accurate, there's a lot of misinformation about fracking out there. The horror stories, I'm not sure that a lot of them are actually true.
Oh, okay.
So, but what it takes...
So why capitalize on them to pass your bill? No, you're not. Go ahead. I'm being
Not. But states like Pennsylvania, where there were a lot of rogue fracking outfits going on, and they had trouble with their groundwater, and some bad practices, that state has implemented a regulatory regime that they claim has nearly stopped the impacts of fracking.
Wow.
Now, people still don't like it, but the rules keep all of the hydraulic fluids on site. They're recycled. You have to have a cement pad down. It's done very tidily, is the way I would put it.
So why ban it?
But I don't think our state has the appetite to create a set of regulations to potentially regulate an industry that may never come to the state.
But that's interesting. If we have the appetite to put a 10-year moratorium on it, why not have an appetite to regulate it?
Costs money to build the regulations.
Got it. So easier just to say, no, we don't want to mess with it.
I tried. In 2015, I modified my bill to say, all right, let's get a good set of regulations in. If we think this is a benefit to the state, let's make sure our regulations are up to snuff. We got a fiscal back. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so everybody lost interest. So I'm back to
Who's a no on your bill? Who's fighting against you?
Oh, I don't know yet.
Anybody lobbying against it?
No.
Who was lobbying against it before?
Like
petroleum industry?
No, they're not really. For example, Northwest Natural, as long as they felt like they could continue to store their natural gas reserves they have some underground caverns around Mist where they store gas in bulk till they need it. As long as they felt like they could continue their operations, they weren't against it.
How much of the analysis should be based on vote counting, and how much of the analysis should be based on smart policy and then trying to bend votes to that smart policy?
I think it depends on what kind of policy you're talking about. I think I know what you're getting at. I think they're definitely.
I wasn't trying to get at something other than.
When do you use your majority, and when do you bend and treat?
No, I'm more interested in how you think through problems. Right? Is it because if an old description that Washington D.C. wasn't really a battle between liberals and conservatives; it was a battle between hacks and wonks. People who thought that policymaking was the accoutrement, was the suit of clothing over a power battle, and others who feel that the battle of power is for the purpose of advancing or stopping good or bad policy. And that tug is something I remain interested in, and I'm trying to get a sense of who you are.
Well, if I can reach a bipartisan consensus on the stuff I do at the legislature, I'm going to go that route. But there are times when I think we have to use our majority to get policies passed that the majority of the Democratic caucus wants. And we've experienced that in the recent past. Minimum wage was such a battle. Democratic caucus thought that was a really important and valuable thing for our state. And there were some folks that thought it was going to be terrible. To me, that's the time you use your Democratic majority to get something good done, because you're not going to get agreement. And we can't see into the future, so we don't know what's going to happen. But one thing we knew we were doing is putting some money in people's pockets for the hard work that they do. So I'm of two minds about it. If you can get your bipartisan agreement, great. If it is a critical issue to the state and you have to go with your majority, you do that.
How's Trump doing in your district?
I haven't seen any signs.
not many people putting Trump. Are you seeing Hillary signs?
A few.
Yeah.
A few.
So not a lot of people putting presidential candidate signs, but more people putting Hillary signs in your district than Donald Trump.
I think so. Yeah. I get the sense that my Republican brethren in the district are more old-style Republicans, more Hatfield Republicans, more McCall Republicans, very thoughtful, maybe a little fiscally conservative.
And definitely don't want to be seen as racist by their neighbors.
No, I think that they are likely to be embarrassed by their pick.
What's something, a big discussion happening in our state that people aren't focusing enough on that they should be, and therefore that we should be?
All down ticket races. They're incredibly important. We're getting wrapped up about this mudslinging tournament between the two national.
Hey, we
candidates.
had you on today and state treasurer candidate. We're doing a couple of candidates every single morning,
That's great.
And I believe this is the only radio show in the state that can say that. I believe that we are going to have interviewed 9-point-something% confident that we will have covered more down ballot, more candidates, more current office holders for elected office than any program of any kind of any media. Well, maybe no, newspapers may do more in their endorsement process, but more than any TV or any radio program in the state of Oregon, I'm relatively confident about that. X-ray. I'm pretty sure, man. So, all right, down ballot races. What about issues? What about things that the legislature is going to be facing? Because we're also going to be covering the legislative session. What's coming up in the legislative session that people should be ready for, including dealing with the failure, maybe passage of Measure 97?
Well, as you know, I'm on the Revenue Committee,
yeah.
And I've been trying to get folks to look past the election on that issue, because if Measure 97 passes, we're going to have to fix it. And if Measure 97 doesn't pass,
and the fix will mean deal with high volume, low margin businesses primarily.
Yeah.
So, and then deal with how to spend the money. But you would be one who would stand up for saying, "Oh yeah, they went out and said we're going to spend the money on education, healthcare, and senior services, and that in fact is what we're going to spend the money on."
Yeah, that's what the ballot measure says.
That's the fix.
Yeah.
Is that just making that clear?
I think that's keeping faith.
Right.
One of the ways they're trying to beat it is by saying, "Oh, the legislature will do crazy stuff." No,
Yeah.
because legislators get beat if they don't keep the promise. I'm not worried about that. The fix, I think, is dealing with the horror story that'll come out. Hey, we sell lots of things. So we have more than $25 million in revenue, but we make only only a single penny. And therefore, if we have to pay 2 pennies, then we will go out of business.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that is not true for the vast bulk of this. Not very many businesses we're talking about, but for those few businesses for whom that is true, legislature will do something. Anything else you want to plug before we bounce?
No. Been a pleasure to be with you.
I'm really glad you came, Ken.
Thank
we haven't
you.
had a chance to hang out a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
We didn't have a chance to serve together. I really appreciate you coming here. You want to come again?
I would love to.
As you're leaving, I believe you brought a campaign worker, a friend, a legislative aide, some smart person wearing a coat in the other room, meaning that they're going to go outside soon. Will you, if you guys think of a topic that we should be covering, that we should be getting in we are supposed to be nerds. And if you have nerd topics, stuff that is not only about, as you said, mudslinging politics, not only about a power analysis, which can be interesting, but also about the decisions that we need to make in our democracy to make our state better, let us know.
I will.
Right. Ken Helm, State Representative, thanks for joining us, man.
Pleasure.
You're listening to X-Ray, KXRY, Portland 107.1, 91.1 FM, streaming around the world at xray.fm. Radio is yours. We'll be back. 2 tweets and a lie. And what did you learn right after this?